So I've been given this opportunity, so I'm very, very happy to talk to you about it. Now, how many of you here are entrepreneurs? Just show of hands. Okay, so most of you are entrepreneurs. All right, so let's say about 10 years ago, I wasn't really in this space. I was doing my PhD in the US, and I was mostly focused on the psychology of meaningful work. Just trying to understand what motivates people at their place of work, what turns them on, what turns them off, how do conflicts arise, how can you resolve them, how do you build trust, anything psychological in the workspace. And as I was studying motivation, trying to think of what is the greatest thing that can motivate a person, I knew money was one of the things, status, glory, shining. And then as you keep moving up the ladder, I was wondering, so what is the greatest motivator? And at some point, I got convinced that the highest motivation you can ever get is to find deeply meaningful work. To almost feel like this is what I was born for. I was born to do this. This is why I was given the talents that I have, because I'm uniquely equipped to solve one of the world's biggest problems. And that's what I've got to do from now on. And I'm really happy that CK took that leap and said, forget about all that other stuff, this is what I really think I'm here to do, and I'm going to do it. So at some point I got convinced that finding your calling was the greatest motivation you could ever get. And I wasn't ready to stop there. I now started asking myself, is it just some people who get callings? It's the lucky few who are born with a mission, and then the rest are just ordinary people who have to follow the normal formula, the normal grind? Or is it something that could happen to anyone? That was the question that was troubling me, and I promised myself in the PhD I would ask and try to answer all the questions that I thought were very important to me. So the more I read about it, the more I kept finding studies that said, I wish somebody would study how people end up in these three buckets that CK talked about. Is your work just a job? You do it for the money? Or is it a career? You do it for the glory, to be recognized, to be promoted? Or is it a calling? You do it for fulfillment and to change the world? So everyone kept talking about what happens if you're in one of those categories. But no one was saying how you end up in those categories in the first place. Are you born that way? How does it happen? And I'd always say somebody should do this. Other researchers should do it. So I decided I was going to do it. Like, okay, this is the question that I really want to know. And I was told you have to pick a group of people you think find their work to be a calling predominantly. So I searched, I looked at different professions, medicine, whatever it is. And the one that really hit me was social entrepreneurs. So they give up their jobs, they use their business skills to try and solve one of the world's greatest problems. And they do it with a passion. So I started hanging out with entrepreneurs, hanging around them, looking for them, going to incubators, accelerators in New Jersey, in New York. And it became infectious. And I think you experience that in this space. You're constantly meeting people who say, impossible is nothing. I have this grand idea and I'm going to turn it into reality. And you're constantly facing naysayers, maybe from your own family and friends, who tell you, come on, just go get a job. Just be normal, get a job and earn a salary, regular income every month. Don't be a pipe dreamer. None of this is going to happen. There are very few Facebooks and Googles and people like that. Don't think you can be like that. You're just an ordinary person. So stop dreaming, get a job. So that's kind of the space that you live in, where a lot of people tell you can't do it, but you keep believing, no, I can see it already. This is what it's going to look by this time next year. And then 5 years from now, it's going to be this big, and then it's going to just take over the world. So you're this person who believes in it, the rest of the world tells you it can't happen. And in a space like this, you meet people like yourself who tell you, yeah, go for it, we're all going for it. And that's what I loved about the workspaces in New York and New Jersey. There was that energy, there was that mindset, and it was infectious. So much as I was studying these people, trying to figure out what motivated them, were they born like this, was this something they acquired, what are the conditions under which you find a calling? That was the primary question in my head, but I didn't realize they were affecting me. I was beginning to become like them, where the idea of impossible is nothing, I can solve the world's problems, forget about the naysayers, so it was beginning to affect me as well. So one fine day, I bumped into a guy called Todd Nakamura, a Google guy. And he was running, or planning to run a competition that Google calls Solve for X. Now I'm sure all of you have done math in high school, and you remember some of these complex problems where there's like x squared divided by y square root this to the logarithm whatever equals something equally complex with x's and y's and z's and things like that. And then you're told solve for x. Unravel it. Make x be the subject of the formula. Somehow move all the x's to one side and then you solve for x. And you're just trying to like tear it apart and how will I remove it from this square root and from this log and from this, how will I get it, bring all the x's together and then bring them to one side, then divide the square root or the third root or whatever it is until I have x equals, and I've solved it, I've solved for x. So Google had this competition called Solve for X, where x is a complex problem. In fact, around Google, if someone asks you what's your x, you're not talking about your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. It's not about that. So when they ask you what's your ex, they mean what's the problem that gets you out of bed every day? What is the one problem you're constantly dreaming about? If I could just solve that, find a product or a service that solves this thing once and for all. Now that's your ex. So they keep coming around asking us, what's your ex? And at first I didn't know what they were talking about until I got used to the jargon. And so Google has a competition called Solve for X, where they're looking for people with ideas that could solve a complex problem, that could solve an X. And they call them moonshot ideas. Ideas like, how about we place a person on the moon and visit him or her back? So you've got to think outside the box and figure out ways of fueling this thing, getting to the moon and back. So you start thinking of creative ways like we'll enter the gravitational system of the moon and then use that to guide us in so we're not spending any money on fuel. It's gonna be the gravitational pull. We'll land on the moon. Then we'll use the little fuel left to kind of jump out of the gravitational pull of the moon and enter the Earth's gravitational pull. Then it pulls us in. So it's like you're just thinking outside the box in multiple ways. How about if a meteorite is coming to hit you? How fast do you need to move out of the way? It's moving at 20,000 miles an hour. You can't compute that. As a pilot, you're like driving this thing. You can't compute that fast. So you need supercomputing. So whatever computers they had before, that's nothing. 10%, 20%, 50% better will get you nowhere. You need something that can recognize this thing coming, calculate the speed at which it's coming, whether it will hit you or not, whether you need to engage in evasive action, and then get back on track without skipping a beat. You're still on the same trajectory to land on the moon. You've not wasted too much fuel in the process. So once you give somebody a challenge like a moonshot, like land a person on the moon, it's no longer a question of 5% better, 10% better. We're talking 100x, 10x, or 10 times better. We're talking like 1,000% better than it was before. That's the level of thinking in terms of supercomputing, fuel efficiency, guiding something to a particular target, bringing it back. What kind of food will you eat when you're there, because you can't carry too much food. You have to think of so many different things and improve. Simply because somebody challenged you. Just to give you a feel for what it's like to think differently and at higher speeds. Think of your own experience. So you've all been students, maybe some of you are still students. So it's the beginning of the semester, you're trying to be responsible, and someone tells you, okay, start studying for the exam. It won't happen. Your brain will refuse to do it. You'll say, okay, let's sit down and study. Yes, you'll sit down, you'll study, but you'll be crawling, moving at a snail's pace. Your brain will just refuse to work at the levels it works 2 weeks to the exam, 1 week to the exam, 1 day to the exam, 3 hours to the exam. Just think about the speed at which you're learning 3 hours to the exam. Like, oh, I also have to read this chapter, and I also have to read this chapter, and this will also come in the exam. I've got to read this chapter as well. And you're reading it, and you're absorbing it, and it's happening at lightning speed. And when you think about it later, you're like, man, I wish I could operate like this all the time. I could make my brain move at the speed of light, at the speed that it moves 3 hours to the exam. And that speed is probably 10 times faster than the speed at the beginning of the semester, maybe even 20 times faster. We've all experienced it, we know what that's like. And that's what moonshot thinking does to you. You take a problem, you say, I've got to crack this, and it's very important to me. And then your creative juices kick in, and you start thinking at those kinds of speeds. So, here I am in New Jersey, hanging out with these entrepreneurs, and Tom Nakamura shows up and says, guys, I'm organizing a Solve for X competition. It's basically like a Google TED Talk, where if you're selected, you come and present your moonshot idea and whatever radical solution that you have for it. So Google in Solve for X has these 3 things, 3 components they're looking for. You need to have an X, which is a complex problem. Something so hard to crack, no one's done it so far, precisely because it's so hard. So complex problem, number 1. Number 2, radical solution. Like out of the box thinking, like, oh my God, why? I mean, no one's ever thought of that before. So, radical solution. And then the third piece is breakthrough technology. Something that could make it happen, that could actually implement this radical solution or approach that you've come up with. So if you have these 3 elements, then you have what Google calls a moonshot, and they can invite you to present it at a Solve for X competition. So Tom Nakamura kept coming, hey guys, give me your X's, give me your moonshots. And I would turn to them like, hey you man, your idea sounds like a moonshot, go for it. And then Tom would turn around and say, hey Vincent, where's your moonshot? And say, hey Tom, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a techie, I'm not even an entrepreneur. So you can't ask me for a moonshot. He said, why not? He said, I told you I'm not a techie, I'm not an engineer, I don't do this stuff. He says, look, anyone can come up with a moonshot. So he kept saying this conversation kept going on for several weeks. I'd bump into him at a pitch competition, wherever entrepreneurs hang out, and he'd say, where's your moonshot, Vincent? So then I started entertaining the possibility that I could come up with a moonshot. Just entertaining it, but saying I'll let it happen. It's not like I'm really looking for a moonshot. So one day at breakfast, I actually came up with an idea in which I could simulate teleportation. You know, this whole idea in Star Trek where they say, beam me up, Scotty, and then suddenly somebody appears in a cylinder and they're vaporized from where they were, they appear in a new space and then they walk in. So I started thinking of ways in which you could make this happen or simulate it and all of that. And so I emailed him in the morning, I said, hey Tom, how's this for a moonshot? Instead of this boring Skype thing where you kind of see somebody on a laptop screen, I want to make people actually appear. And unlike Star Trek where they're kind of rooted to the spot, they're in this cylinder and they appear there, I want my holograms to be moving around, interacting with guys, and you can't tell the difference between who's real and who's a hologram. And that's it, so you can, that would be the new Skype. You know, people just get teleported to different places. So he told me it's pretty cool, but it's technically impossible. So I mean, I was a bit disappointed, but not too much. This was a 5-minute breakfast idea. I hadn't invested any time in it, except the time to send the email to Todd. So that was it. Then 3 hours later, Todd writes to me again. So I'm checking my email, I see an email coming in from Todd, and I didn't expect one. Then he says, Vincent, you've got to be very excited about this. I've just been to the Google office in New York, and they told me, hey Todd, you're organizing this solve for X thing in Northern Jersey. What are the crazy ideas people are floating your way? And so just for the heck of it, I mentioned your idea. And they were so excited about it. They were like, wow, this is so cool, wow. You know, and so all I'm telling you is, Google loves your idea. They think it's really cool. But I know it's impossible. If you doubt me, here are 2 articles you should read that explain why it's technically impossible to do what you're trying to do. So, I didn't read the rest of the email. I was only reading the part where it says Google is excited about my idea. And I was just saying, wow, I can't believe it. Me? I'm not an engineer, I'm not a techie, I'm nothing, I'm just, and Google loves something I just cooked up at breakfast, like wow. And the only thing standing between me and a moonshot is some limitation in these 2 articles. Just some limitation. Now, unbeknownst to me, something was happening when I was using all these adjectives. First of all, I was super excited that Google could even be interested in anything I said. I was like over the moon, like unbelievable, incredibly excited. And just the thought that I could be close to a moonshot was amazing. So all of this was making me very excited. Then the adjectives I was applying, the only thing standing in my way is some limitation in these 2 articles. What I didn't realize is I was trivializing the complex problem. I was saying the only thing, as if the problem wasn't that big. The only thing, just one thing, it's not even like too many things, just one thing between me and a moonshot. If I get it out of the way, I have a moonshot. So the incentive was very high. I was trivializing the complexity of it, like refusing to believe it could be. Now that I was this close, how could it be impossible? The only thing standing in my way is some limitation, some tiny little thing in these 2 articles. So, obviously I stopped doing what I was doing. I was supposedly studying for my PhD, doing some work in the library. All of that came to a halt, and I read the 2 articles. And you're not going to believe this, but 5 minutes after I finished reading the second article, I got an insight. I was like, wait a minute. All of these guys who are trying to solve this problem are using one of 2 approaches to do it. And I've just thought of a 3rd way, but I'm not seeing anyone doing it. So I write an email to Todd, like, Todd, you know, it's weird. It seems to me like everyone's trying to do this in one of 2 ways. So you're saying it's impossible to do what I'm saying because the internet is just not good enough. That you can't send that much data, you can't film people, transmit it across the internet, and then project it in a room at that scale with that accuracy. Like the internet is simply not good enough. And so you only have 2 possibilities. One, make the internet faster. So we're already talking of supercomputing, so this would now be super computing. You have to make computers faster than they are. Or make transmission of, pockets of data across the internet faster. Just the infrastructure needs to be better. Or the compression techniques, how you take the information and compress it. So right now, think of the internet like a pipe, and you're trying to pass all this stuff through the pipe, and it's too big. But the more you compress it, the more stuff you can send through the pipe. So either you compress the stuff and squeeze it tighter so that you can send a lot more information through that pipe, or you make the pipe bigger. Those are the only 2 options. And that's how everyone was trying to solve it. Make faster computers, better telecoms ways of sending data across, or get better compression software. Those are the only 2 solutions. And then I came up with a 3rd pathway where I said, actually, I've just met somebody who made a movie, an animated movie, and he got nominated for the Oscars. It was a 10-minute animated movie. And he explained to me how he did it, and I was fascinated by the whole concept of animation. So borrowing his idea, I said, why are we filming people like every second. I'm filming everything you're doing and then compressing it and then sending it across the internet and then projecting it. Why do I have to film you every second? I already know what you look like after I film you for 1 minute. So all I need to do is create an avatar that looks like you, place it at the other end of the other computer at the final destination, and after that, all I need to send is your movements. I don't need to send the rest of your details, just the vectors that describe your movements. If you moved your hand, I tell the computer on the other hand, you moved your hand, move the hand, and then it does it. Now, for somebody watching this avatar that is being animated using vectors of movements, will not know the difference between filming something, compressing it, and decompressing it on the other end, or the animation. You can't tell the difference. When you get a phone call, you think you're hearing the other person. You're not. All we did is capture the frequencies of the different sounds the person was making in the room they were in, transmitted the frequencies across the telephone lines or the waves or whatever, and then we reinterpreted those frequencies by now disturbing the air molecules at the other end. We recreated the frequencies. And so it sounds just like me on the other side. You'd think it's me speaking, it's not. We've recreated my voice. So the same way you can do that, I can do that by animating something. And you would not know the difference. What do you care whether I filmed it, compressed it, and replayed it, or whether I animated an avatar? If it looks exactly the same, you would never know the difference. And what's the difference between compressing data, visual and audio data, and compressing vectors? Vectors are nothing. That's how computers work, it's just numbers. So all I would be sending is numbers across the internet. And I wouldn't even need to send all the numbers, it's just the parts that move. Maybe you just moved your hand. Those are like 2 or 3 vectors. I just pick a few points. And even if you move your face, I don't have to send vectors of every single spot on your face. If you moved your nose, I know the rest of your face moved in the same direction. So all I need is that one vector, and then I know which part of the body it is, and I can use software to move the rest of the avatar. And I'm sending very, very, very little information, and suddenly what was impossible becomes possible. So I emailed Todd and explained this, and he said, oh my God, you've cracked it. You've cracked it, you've actually found the solution. You've got a moonshot. Send me your pitch deck. And obviously I wasn't believing it, like, no, this did not happen. It's not happening. So for about 2 or 3 weeks, I'd bump into Todd and he'd be like, Vince, where's your moonshot? Where's your pitch deck? The deadline is coming. So 1 week to the deadline, I say I can't send a pitch deck that sounds amateurish. I better educate myself in the jargon that people in this space use. So I spent a week studying holograms, avatars, all this stuff, until I could write something that looked halfway decent. And I sent my pitch deck. So he got 2 engineers to call me and interview me over the phone, like, tell us about this thing, how would it work? And then they told me, by the way, you stand a chance to be a finalist and to be invited to speak. And I said, no, you guys will slaughter me, I'm not an engineer. You'll ask me questions I can't answer. I said, don't worry, we'll lowball it. We'll just ask you how you got the inspiration. It'll be all about insight. It's not about how you technically do it. So unlike most moonshots where you have to have the complex problem, radical solution, and breakthrough technology, we'll go easy on you on the breakthrough technology because you're not a techie. But you've actually shown us how it could be done. Now we could get an actual techie to do it, so that's the easy part. It's how you arrived at the idea that we're interested in. So I was called to be one of 7, they call us moonshot pioneers, who spoke at Google offices in New York. You can find it on the internet, so if you go to YouTube, search for my name and solve for X, or my name in Google, you'll watch 4 people asking me questions, how would you do it, how would the world be different, blah, 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 all very interesting. But as you can imagine, once they put it on the internet, people started writing to me like, we thought you were doing it. Are you studying or did you quit school? Like, no, but you're not doing engineering or, so you are doing like management. So what the heck is this? Are you planning to drop out and to take this idea? I said, no, I'm not planning to drop out. I have 1 more year to finish and planning to finish. so what is this? I said, it's some side hustle thing I'm doing. It's like, it's a hobby. It's actually something that just happened. I wasn't even like trying to do anything, it just happened. Don't get worried, I'm not dropping out. So I was reassuring the people back in Nairobi that, look, I'm on track and I'm not distracted and I'm coming back. But then there were other guys saying, no, but you should absolutely drop out. That's what people do in moments like this. That's what the Google guys did, they dropped out. That's what the Facebook guy did, he dropped out. This is your moment, man, drop out. Get a patent, start a company, do it. Go for the stars, make millions of bucks, do it, man, this is the moment. You'll never have another big idea like this again. This happens once in a lifetime, guys. It happens once in a lifetime, drop out now. So, I know most of you here would actually have dropped out. Maybe some of you have dropped out in order to be here. And I was thinking, am I being stupid? Are they right? Should I drop out? And then they kept saying, look, these things happen once in a lifetime. And only to some people. It's like a 1 in a million chance. And you're the 1 in a million. You either drop out now or forever regret why you missed your one shot of greatness in life. Because you'll never have another big idea like this. But remember, I told you I'm a researcher. I study, I try and correlate data and causality, and then I said, let me just examine that statement. You will never have another big idea like this in your life. And I said, is that true? Could that be true? And then I remembered everything that happened that day. I said, actually, for some reason, it's not true in my case. Because I had 2 big ideas on the same day. I had that first idea in the morning. Then I emailed John. Then a few hours later, he emails me and says it can't be done, and here's why. Then I apply my mind to it. I crack it, actually in 5 minutes. So my second big idea that day, the second one took me 5 minutes to crack. From the time I said, here's the problem, to the time I said, here's the answer. Now, how random is that? I mean, is that random? Or is there a pattern? Is there something I'm doing right? Is there something I actually have that enables me to solve complex problems and to solve them fast? And the researcher in me was saying, this can't be random. There's no way you might do it once, but to do it twice in a day, and furthermore to do it in 5 minutes, no, that isn't random. That cannot be random. So there's something I'm doing that even I don't understand. And so once I was convinced that this wasn't random, again the researcher in me now asked the question, so what happened there? If it's not random, if it's a pattern, if it's something I have, either, just like my PhD question, either it's something I was born with, and I'm unique and I didn't know it and I'm suddenly discovering it, or there's a pattern that if I understand, being a teacher, I can teach other people how to do it. So now that became my new moonshot. Forget about the hologram teleportation. I was like, if I can crack this one, if I can find a pattern, then it means I could solve any complex problem. And then being a teacher, I pride myself in the ability to explain anything I understand. So over the years, I've developed the ability to explain anything I understand to anyone. It's almost like a challenge, like how could you not understand it when I'm the one explaining it to you? Like how could you not? Because I face this all the time. I'll have like 40 different students, 40 different abilities, and my one ambition is everyone's going to understand. You know, take no prisoners, no one left behind, every single person. Because if no one understands, it's not because they're stupid, it's because I'm a bad teacher. So over the years, I've developed the ability to explain anything I understand to anybody. And so, if I could just understand this thing, I was convinced I could teach it to anyone. And so I started thinking of every single thing that happened that day, like every single thought, feeling, step. I was leaving nothing behind, nothing unassumed. Was it the thought process? Was it the emotions? Because I study people from a psychological perspective, you know, what sort of impact does their emotions have on them. So I examined every single thought and emotion that I had that day, and realized the ways in which I was actually turning a complex problem into a simple problem, even emotionally. And then I came up with a pattern, and I said, I think that looks like an innovation algorithm. If you follow those steps, you should be able to crack any complex problem.